I'm Stefanie Green. I'm a wife, a teacher, and a yoga instructor. So I grew up in Philly until I was 7 years old, and then my brother, my mom, and my dad we moved to Ventnor, New Jersey, right outside of Atlantic City. And my two younger sisters were then brought up there, Marissa and Christina. I never really thought about that I had to have a family. I think I always just wanted one, but it wasn't like some people who were like, I'm gonna have this many at this age. Tim and I met through mutual friends, and he basically is my other half. I mean, it was amazing to hear all the things we had in common with each other. Tim and I got married in August 2009. So I found out that I had a fibroid in the spring of 2010. I felt this really weird pain in my abdomen in the morning, and it got so bad I couldn't even walk. I wound up going to the emergency room, and from there they said it was a fibroid on my uterus, so they decided to do surgery. And it wasn't until the pathologist results came back that they told me that it was malignant. So then from there they could tell that it was leiomyosarcoma, which is a very rare cancer. So a couple options, but the one the doctor was pushing for was obviously to have a hysterectomy. So I had the hysterectomy this summer 2010. So at that moment I knew that I would never be able to carry, but they did leave in my ovaries in hopes to do IVF and have a carrier. I was pretty much devastated because it was the part that was hardest was first the doctor had actually called and said that the fibroid was benign, which means non-cancerous. So at first I'm thinking, then why did I just remove my uterus? But wherever they sent it, a few days later, the pathologist noticed all of these cells multiplying very quickly, and that's when they tested it and realized actually it's malignant. So that was scary and confusing, and then it was just a shock to the system, and we were called into the office to get the news, Tim and I. So I know when we left there, I was bawling in the car because it was just really emotional, and it was a lot to take in. So when we met with the doctor, the IVF doctor, I mentioned that my sister, who at the time was only 21, had said that she would carry the baby for us. My husband and I were very grateful that she would even consider it, and when we talked to the doctors about it, they said sure. It wasn't until after the surgery, I already had the hysterectomy, that the nurse coordinator eventually found out that my sister Christina had never had children of her own, and said, well, there's no way she could carry then, because the psychiatrist that would have to meet with us at law to go ahead with the process would never approve her because she has never had her own child. After my sister was not able to carry for us, I think we started kind of talking to family members and getting different vibes, and even a few friends kind of offered. But it wasn't until Tim's cousin, Chrissy, offered that we decided to go with her, because even though different people offered, it's not that simple where you can just be like, okay, sure, you can carry our baby for us. There's a lot involved. I think we were all very hopeful that it would work. We saw the percentages, and I think it was maybe in the 50 percentile that it was possible because of my age. And we were glad that Chrissy would was willing to put into. And actually, I believe the first time when we received the phone call, maybe 2 weeks later, was that congratulations, you are pregnant, and they gave us a number for the pregnancy hormone in Chrissy's body, which was 11. And if anyone looks that up, anything below 25 really is not technically pregnant. So they really should explain that better to us, because then from there the number is supposed to double after they check after a day or two, and when they did, that number was not even a number anymore. So then they had to say, I'm sorry, you're not pregnant anymore. So that was a huge devastating blow. After the first time with Chrissy trying, basically everyone involved said, well, we're going to do this again. So they actually only transferred one. But we all had a sinking feeling that we talked about later. We just had this like negative vibe. And I guess 14 days later when they told us the results, that automatically was, no, I'm sorry, you guys are not pregnant. I basically felt like that was it, we're done. You know, we're just not meant to have kids, or I think that's what I felt initially, and as time went on I thought, well, you know, my 4 sisters could maybe carry one day, maybe it's just not right now, and just kind of like let life go as it's meant to go for now. I think everything that I went through was a lot, but when I was going through it, I didn't really realize how much it affected me, and I did actually go into a depression from it, and what helped pull me out was talking to a therapist and starting to do a yoga and meditation practice. And eventually I stopped seeing the therapist because I was back on track, but I continued to take yoga classes and practice at home, and that is really what helped me get through everything that I went through. So there's definitely a lull, maybe about at least 6 months that went by between our last time with Tim's cousin and where we went next. I read an article about someone who was talking about if there's something that you want in the universe, then you need to ask for it. So I did, and I said, where to next? Like, what do we do now? A lot of time had passed, at least it felt like it, and I didn't know where to go. And then my dad came over and mentioned that my stepmom had brought up, you know, what do we think about her caring for us? And she had previously asked us, maybe a year prior or 2 years. And at that time, I thought it was weird. I wasn't really that close with her. But recently, the summer prior, we went to Italy together, and I became very close with her. And so we started thinking about that. And basically, I think realizing like, okay, that was the sign from the universe. Because at the time I was thinking about asking a friend, and I think then I became more specific and said like, okay, like we need to move forward with this, but what do we do? And that was when my dad came to me and said, how about having your stepmom try and carry for you? After talking to Tim and deciding, okay, let's have this discussion with our stepmom. That's exactly what we did. We had my dad and my stepmom come over, and we just kind of started talking about everything, and after talking to her about it and hearing us out, she agreed to move forward, which we were very blessed and thankful that she would want to do this for us. And in the end, the doctor said to Tim and I, how many kids do you want? And we said 1. And the reason we said 1 is because we were at this point where we were like, we just want 1. Just 1 to work. Going into it, I think I was hopeful, and a little reserved just because we had tried already 3 times. But doing this with a new person and even meeting the doctor, with Kate, she said something to him like, I thought you were retiring, and he looked at me and he said, well, I have one more job to do. So it's felt like a scene from a movie, like, okay, like, all right, we're gonna do this. So the transfer date was April 29th, 2015. So we were very excited, and this time around I found out in 9 days, so it was a lot shorter waiting period. And interestingly enough, it was right before Mother's Day. And I specifically remember what happened. It was around mid-afternoon. I was walking Star, I had my phone on me, and the nurse called and she said, Stefanie, I'm so excited to tell you that you are finally pregnant. And I couldn't believe it. I started crying, happy, tears. The nurse was very happy for us. I immediately called my husband. He thought something was wrong because I was crying. He could hear it in my voice. And I told him, you know, we're pregnant. I told him the number. The number was like over 100, where before we had heard 11 and they told us we were pregnant. And then from there, that number just kept doubling. So we were very up in spirits, thinking like this was it. Maverick Jackson Green was born on January 15th, 2016, 21 inches, 9.9 pounds.